Okay, so welcome to Adobe Photoshop. Today we're going to discuss 3 or 4 tools that you could use in the creation of the activity that I have given you on Quipper. So again, we first start with the new project. We'll be naming this with gradient, following the FB event image for the width and the height, and making our background transparent. Click create. So upon starting this, we select the gradient tool. The gradient tool is located here below the eraser tool. So before starting the gradient tool, notice that the options for the gradient tool are here at the top. And let's focus first on the two colors or the color boxes here below. So this is where you select the color for the gradient. And those of you who are wondering what the gradient tool is, so it applies a change of colors. So it is a color transformation pattern tool that uses two colors to make it blend and change into the other color. If you're going to notice here at the options, we have green and red, and notice here this is the gradient that you can do or form. So this is green going to red. So how do we use the gradient tool? So first you just have to click on the gradient tool, then drag on the screen. You could drag from left to right, right to left, downwards, up to upwards, diagonally, and notice that there is a color separation of the color transforming from one color to other color. So one question that you may have on your mind right now is, could you change the colors? Yes. To change colors, you need to select this top box is called the foreground color. So we select, say for example, a pink one, hit OK, then we select another one. So let's pick up a contrasting color, this one, there. So when we apply the gradient here, so you hold your finger or your mouse to drag. So this is called the process of dragging, and you are able to create a gradient. So the next thing that we're going to focus is this arrow leading down. So when you click this, is you are able to select all the preset gradients here on this box. So you could try and practice those. So you are on your own regarding the practicing of such gradients. See what effects it does when you use them. But I usually stick with foreground to background. So this is to where you select the two colors. So the next one is this one. This is the type of gradient that you are going to use. So ignore blend mode, opacity, reverse, and deter for now. So we will not be using them. So use linear, select linear. These are the types. We have linear is the one that I am demonstrating to you, while radial creates a circle depending on how long you create your drag. So it creates a background pattern of blue and a pink one for the foreground color. So angular or angle gradient creates a very sharp line at the center. The foreground is at the top and the background is at the back. The change of color happens here. Reflected is just creating two sides with the background, and the foreground is at the center. This is to where the change of color happens at both sides of the foreground color. And diamond is used to create a diamond style gradient. So notice that if I drag it very long, there is the change of the color from foreground to background. Okay, so the next thing or the next tool, oh, by the way, you could change the foreground and background color by clicking on this double-headed arrow So this is swapping colors. So you could change the foreground to background colors, vice versa. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to teach you is the smudge. So I'll be erasing this or covering this up so that you will understand what the smudge tool does. So the smudge tool, like it is placed below the gradient tool. It is usually hidden as a subtool. So all you have to do is just underneath blur tool. So all you have to do is just hold, click, then select the smudge tool. So how do we create a smudge? So let's first put a paint of blue at the center of the screen for you to better understand how the smudge tool works. So the smudge has options, few options. The strength at 50%, the strength at the brush size. So this has the same options as the brush. The only difference is it has a strength value. So imagine this as the smudge tool is like dabbling with a paint or with pastel color, with oil pastel. When you hold left click or your finger, you could easily drag splatters of paint coming from the color that is set for the foreground. So as you may have noticed, I am dragging and making the colors expand. So I usually use this when creating eyelashes or small curved lines. So what does the strength do? So the strength, when you adjust this, so the strength here is at 50%. When I adjust this to around 10%, when I drag this, notice that there is just a small splatter of paint. It is unlike the 50% that has a large one. And when you set this value to around 100%, notice that when we drag the color, it creates a very long line as if it is not smudging off or wiping off paint, as you may have noticed. Okay, so that is the smudge tool. So the next tool is also grouped with the smudge tool. So we focus first on the blur tool. So as the name implies, the blur tool is used to create blurry images or faded color images. This is used to make objects out of focus or make them unclear. So if you have noticed, the lines here in the circle or the sides of the circle are very sharp. You could see the lines. But when we apply the blur tool at 50%, notice that the lines begin to fade and creating a blur effect as if you are softening an image. So sharp lines are being eliminated when you use it at or use the blur tool. You could increase the strength of the blur by changing it to whatever value you like. Say for example 100% when you blur. So you just hold left click to blur. Release when done. There. Notice that those sharp edges are now non-existent. Although it looks sharp when you focus your eyes, but in reality this has now become a soft image. So that is the blur tool. The sharpen tool is just the reverse of the blur tool. If you want to make an object clear, so blur is making an object unclear or faded or blurred. So the sharpen tool is just the reverse. It makes the image or the object on the screen much more sharper, bringing out all the lines that were previously blurred. So once you apply this, you will be noticing that the once blurred lines will now come out. But the only problem with this is it makes the background color of pink even more sharper in color. So it shows here at the side. So I don't usually use this. I just stick with smudge and blur. But you could use this depending on the situation that it requires you. So this is the summary of the lesson. You could play with the settings. So the blur, the smudge, and the sharpen tool has the same adjustment settings as the brush and the eraser tools. You can select the type of uh, blur brush or sharpen brush or smudge brush you want to use. The hardness is, you could play with the settings, and the size. Going right increases the size of the tool you have selected, and going to the left decreases the size. So strength of the sharpen tool, you could adjust this to 100%, making or creating a very sharp image or sharp line depending on the situation, and making it a lower value creates a very soft sharpen of an image. So that's it for the summary of the lesson on those tools. So make sure that you check on your equipper for the activity. Thank you and have a nice one.